Welcome, everyone, to Fantasy Foresight, the podcast. We're your hosts and co-founders of FantasyForesight.com. I'm Ben.
And I'm Jay.
You ready to get rolling, Jay?
You know it. Let's do this.
All right, let's go. Today, we've got the quarterbacks from the NFC North as of Thursday, August 23rd. And to start us off, we've got Mitch Trubisky for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, some clear-cut starters here. Not a lot of quarterback controversy in this division. Mitch Trubisky getting the full season start here in Chicago after coming on late last season. Last year, he came in, he got off to a decent start, but only averaged about 183 yards per game. He had 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, which you can expect from a rookie campaign. I mean, he's getting his feet wet. Because of that limited sample size and the rookie-type production that we saw from him, he is Total Foresight's quarterback 30, currently going undrafted, which matches up pretty well with that. The Bears looking to not be all that great of a team this year, as Vegas has them winning less than 6 games. We've talked in numerous podcasts about quarterbacks that present value. And I'm just not sure right now that Mitch Trubisky has that now. He does have some restocked assets around him, some weapons that he can throw to, and some weapons in the backfield that do present him some upside. His O-line, at least, is halfway decent. It's a little bit better than middle of the road in the league. And they do have a favorable schedule for quarterbacks, ranking 4th in the league. So there are some pieces there for for him to exceed those expectations. Sure. But at this point, I'm just not sure how much I can trust what he's going to do from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, I don't have any trust at all, just because we didn't see anything last year that gives us any sort of indication. The only pros that you have going for him is the perceived soft strength of schedule. You've also got Matt Nagy coming to town, and hopefully that should be an improved offensive outlook for the entire team. I think one thing that I think is just worthy to mention, because I have such high regard for the Manning family, is that Archie Manning was recently quoted as saying, Peyton Manning thinks a lot of Mitch, and I do too. And, until his accuracy improves, he's not going to take a step. But if Archie Manning and Peyton Manning believe in you, for me, long-term, that's the only endorsement that I need. I just don't know from a fantasy perspective how quickly that's going to translate into tangible value.
No, I don't think he's going to be a guy who I'm going to take in a draft to start the season. But like we've said, the pieces are there for him to exceed expectations. So he could be kind of a sneaky play. I'm just going to have to wait to see it first before I roster him.
Yeah, the quarterback position is insanely deep this year, and there's just so many better options that I would prefer to take than him this year. And that could not be further from the truth than our next quarterback in this division, Matthew Stafford for the Detroit Lions. Love this guy, especially this year.
Yeah, I know we both expected maybe a little bit more out of him last year with the new offensive coordinator coming to town, and I know you love saying his name, so go ahead and say it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Detroit's
Jim Bob Cooter, I know what you're talking about. Jim Bob's awesome. Getting back to Stafford, though, he hasn't missed a game since 2010.
Yeah. He's always been solid. He's Total Foresight's QB11. He's the back end of a QB1, and I think that's pretty appropriate for him. He's always been kind of that back end side. For me, if you're competing for fantasy championships, you always want to have top players in each position in your league, and he represents the bottom half of the QB1 position. So I always want to look for more value than him, unless other guys in the league are benching guys in front of him and you have no other option, then at least you're still getting a QB1. But I don't know, Ben.
I've got to respectfully disagree with you this year about Matty Stafford. And here's why. He's going 100 to 105 over the last month in drafts. Guys going ahead of him, Jimmy Garoppolo and Kirk Cousins. Guys going behind him, Phillip Rivers and Matt Ryan. Matt Stafford has not thrown less than 4,200 yards since 2010. Matt Stafford got significant upgrades to his offensive line, and it is ranked the 7th best offensive line in the league. The defense is shoddy. That spells a lot more volume, and the improved offensive line translates into more time to throw. Over the last several years, his fantasy finishes are as follows. quarterback 8, quarterback 7, quarterback 9, quarterback 15, quarterback 7, quarterback 9, and quarterback 5. He is a rock solid QB1, and I trust that floor more than anybody else going ahead of him, and just as much as anybody else going behind him. And I think with his weapons of Tate, Marvin Jones, and Kenny Galladay, I think he's got potential to flirt with the upper 4,000s this year.
Well, okay, you've made a great point. A significantly upgraded offensive line could make all the difference in the world for Matt Stafford this year, from being a low-end QB1 to being a higher-end QB1 finally, and really be that legit quarterback scoring force in fantasy football. So, yeah, you know what? Even just talking about it, you've changed my mind a little bit in my viewpoint of him. Although, again, Total Foresight has him as QB11, I do really like the improved offensive line, giving him time to throw to those weapons. And I expect Kenny Galladay to have a little bit more of a breakout season this year in his sophomore campaign. And like you said, he does have plenty of weapons.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love Matt Stafford where he's going in drafts this year. I don't have any problem if you take him right around there, even a little bit before.
Okay, so we talked about Matt Stafford, how he's kind of viewed as a back-end QB1, but we think maybe he'll outproduce that. On the flip side, you have Aaron Rodgers, who we all know went down with injury last year. I know it all too well. He's the exact opposite, where he's going top-end QB. He is Total Foresight's QB3, but I don't know. He's coming off of injury. The offensive line is a little bit better. He was running for his life last year. It was putrid. So it's improved a little bit. It's now middle of the road. It's 14th. He's going drafted 30 to 35. And I know it's Aaron Rodgers, and everyone's going to tell me he's the best in the league. You know, you can have the debate with Tom Brady and all that. But it makes me nervous, man. I don't know what it is.
I know, and I hear you, and I agree with you until I went and did the research. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, his worst quarterback finish, aside from when he was hurt in 2013 and aside from when he was hurt last year, is quarterback 7. When he plays, he's quarterback 1 or quarterback 2, and it's like clockwork. I mean, his quarterback rating is 103.8. He's averaging more than 2 touchdowns a game with 65% accuracy. The guys going behind him, Deshaun Watson's going right there. I'll take Aaron Rodgers over Deshaun Watson all day. Tom Brady is the other quarterback going right behind him. I'm sorry, I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers again because history tells us, the statistical probability tells us that Aaron Rodgers is not going to have 2 bad seasons in a row.
Okay, you're right, but history also just told us that he's missed time in 2 out of the last 5 seasons.
That's true, but like last year, I don't. There's injuries.
Okay, and then just a minute ago, you told me Matt Stafford hasn't missed a game basically in 5 years. So
I love Matt Stafford, and I love waiting on a quarterback. All I'm saying is, if somebody wants to take Aaron Rodgers at 30 to 35, based on his historical fantasy finishes, I can't really give you a problem with that if you're not happy about who is available at the other positions at that point.
No, and I'm falling victim to emotion because his injury crushed my hopes last year.
Well, there you go.
And it still hurts. Listen, he's Total Foresight's QB3. We love Mike Clay. He has him as his QB1 overall. He's going 30 to 35. And in many leagues, I would venture to guess most leagues, the quarterback position scores the most points. So if you can have a shot at taking the player who scores the most points, period, more than receiver, more than running back, the most, then you take that player. You want that guy on your team. And there is a good chance, there is a high probability that Aaron Rodgers is that player this season.
Right. And I mean, last year he got dumped on his shoulder and had the weight of a D lineman fall on. Like, I don't look at that as like some injury-prone play. That's some fluke play that could happen to anybody if they fall on somebody the wrong way. I mean, but it still happened, and it's accounted for, which is why he's a Total Foresight's QB3 and not Total Foresight's QB1.
Okay, can I give you some quick counterpoints that maybe give me a little bit of pause about Aaron Rodgers? Again, I know the consensus is he's the top of the pile, but his offensive line's middle of the road. he has the 31st ranked strength of schedule for quarterbacks. He's got a difficult schedule. He's got a mediocre offensive line. He doesn't have his buddy Jordy Nelson, who they were of the same mind. He has Randall Cobb, who's constantly ouchy.
Yeah.
He's got Devontae Adams, who I can't say is constantly ouchy because he took a hit last season where I thought he might have been decapitated, and he came right back and played. So he does have Devontae Adams. They added Jimmy Graham in the offseason. Yeah, yep. I mean, they have some assets in the tight end position. Their running backs can't stay healthy. So I just, I look at his weapons, and I just don't know how dangerous they are. I hear everybody in Seattle tell me how Jimmy Graham lost a step, and now he goes to Green Bay. And I like Jimmy Graham, and I like the prospect of him, but I look across these assets for Aaron Rodgers, and I know he's the man, and he's one of the best that's ever lived. But I look around, and I'm kind of underwhelmed at what they have.
I can't argue with that. And you know me, unless I am disgusted with what's available to me at that point in the draft, and I feel like I'm really reaching and forcing another position, I'm not going to take Aaron Rodgers that early. I'm just not. Philosophically, I like to wait on my quarterbacks, and I think there's a lot of high-end value in later rounds of this draft, and we just discussed one of those examples in Matt Stafford.
And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was just one of those seasons for a team, and we've seen it before. Look, we saw it here locally in Columbus with our hockey team a couple seasons ago where you had this abnormality of injuries across the board, but it just seemed like guys dropped like flies in Green Bay last season. I don't know if it was something in the water, but guys just can't stay healthy, and we're already seeing it now. I think Cobb picked up an ankle injury in the preseason, so he's nursing that, and I'm fearful that now we're going to start to see this trend creep back up where, guys like Ty Montgomery can't stay healthy. We just talked about how his offensive line is mediocre, but they've got a tough strength of schedule, and I look at this picture of he's got okay weapons, he's got an okay line. I know he can maybe lead them to victories, and he's going to be good, but again, just the value where he's ranked. There's other guys coming up who maybe are in better situations. It just gives me a little bit of pause is all I'm saying.
And I think we're both in agreement that it's not our preferred play at the 30 to 35 range, but I think we're also in agreement that in the right scenario, it's the best move at that point.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. So definitely not a target at that price range, but you could, there's times where it is the appropriate move to take him there.
I can't crush you for taking Aaron Rodgers anywhere in the draft you want to take him. I'm just explaining why there's a little bit of pause with him in this situation, coming off of injury in the situation he's in. I'm just not one of those guys who's going to overpay for him.
Yeah,
now,
I agree.
A guy in a new situation is Kirk Cousins, who now finds himself on the Minnesota Vikings, the team that was heartbroken, one step away from the Super Bowl. They had the Minnesota Miracle to get to the NFC Championship game, and then they just get thwarted by the Philadelphia Eagles. They came oh so close to making it to the dance. And now they're back. They've restocked. They've got a dynamic wide receiving core if they can stay healthy. Their running back position,
strong.
It's strong again if it can stay healthy. They seem to have these key injuries at their key skill positions. But Kirk, in this new setup, he's ranked as QB8 in total Foresight. Now, here's the concerning part. He has the 25th ranked offensive line.
Yep.
They do have a decently soft strength of schedule coming in ranked 10th. So he's in a new situation. He's got to get on the same page with his weapons and his assets, and they need to stay healthy. What's your take?
First off, it's all about value. It's all about relativity. He's going 90 to 95. Guys going ahead of him are Andrew Luck and Carson Wentz. Guys going behind him are Jimmy Garoppolo and Matt Stafford. Here's the thing. The big conundrum with Kirk Cousins is he has the history of strong fantasy finishes. Right. Last 3 years, he's QB6, QB5, QB8. He's been a rock solid QB1 since he's been a starter. Now, he's only ever had the likes of being on the team where Kyle Shanahan or Jay Gruden are the offensive minds. So is he a franchise QB with elite talent? Or is he the beneficiary of great offensive minds in the coaching rooms? or is it something in between? This year, we're really going to find out. And even if the answer is that he is an elite franchise quarterback, I could still see him regressing a little bit, at least early on, as they really get to feeling each other out between him and his wide receivers and, just him and his coaching staff. And I don't know, man. He's the highest paid player in NFL history, and there's rumblings around his old team that they upgraded the quarterback position this year with Alex Smith. So is there any mental side of that? Is there any internal pressure or anything that's going to impact his psyche in relation to that, do you think?
I think he now has better weapons. Maybe his offensive coordinator isn't the magician that he's had before, but I think that balances out where he's got better weapons.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is with the guys going around him, who are you taking? You taking Kirk Cousins, or you taking Andrew Luck or Carson Wentz? You taking Kirk Cousins, or you taking Jimmy G or Matt Stafford?
It's an interesting group that you have two guys coming off of injury with really high upside going right in front of them, because their value has been lowered because of their risk, and he is fully healthy and he's coming in right behind them. I think that's telling. But what also is telling is that Vegas has them winning 10 games. They're going to be a good team, and I think people in Minnesota would tell you they've been waiting for a quarterback on that team to really galvanize them.
I'll be honest.
So they went out and they get Kirk Cousins to put with the other pieces they have there. And, we fail to mention that they also have Kyle Rudolph, another offensive weapon. So, that offense, there's no excuse for that offense not moving the ball and scoring points. They have weapons at every position.
Yeah.
I think he should put up points and present value. But again, like to your point, it's all about draft value, and going 90 to 95, I don't know. Maybe that's right where he belongs. So
I'd rather wait. I'd rather wait a little bit and take Matt Stafford, to be honest with you. But I would take him over Andrew Luck or Carson Wentz or Jimmy G right now.
I agree. And I think being appropriately valued at 90 to 95 makes him a fine choice there. But I think you and I also look for getting more value out of each pick. You want to come out ahead, and I just don't know if you do that with Kirk Cousins in that range.
No, he does not present max value at that position when he's going from 90 to 95.
Right.
And I think that's really what we're targeting.
Yeah.
Now, that's average. If he drops another 10, 15 spots, his value to me really spikes.
Yeah, we had a long, awkward conversation of getting to that point. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and I think that just goes to show how puzzling the whole situation with Kirk Cousins is, both in Washington with the curious way that they manage his contract and how they let him go after they pay him all that money. And now he's in Minnesota in seemingly, an ideal situation as far as offensive weapons go and compensation goes. And there's still just not this certainty of, this automatically means he's going to be an elite high-end QB1.
It is interesting that you have all these football minds around the league, and you hear what everything that was said in Washington, but then you turn around and everybody in Minnesota says, finally, we have our guy. We have our quarterback, the guy who's going to lead us to the promised land. And they're just so opposite that it's interesting to see that.
It is. Yeah. And I think with the level of uncertainty there, I would rather go in a different direction. But if you come away with Kirk Cousins as your quarterback with your 9th or 10th selection at 90 to 95, I'm not going to have any issues with that. I'm not going to be surprised if he is a low-end quarterback 1, high-end quarterback 2 because of some growing pains, transition pains. I'm also not going to be surprised if he's a high-end quarterback 1 because everything comes together.
We have him ranked as our QB8. Mike Clay has him as QB9 right in that same range. Perfectly fine pick. Yep.
And I think that'll wrap it up for us for the quarterbacks in this division. And up next, we'll have the running backs from the NFC North, so stay tuned.
And that wraps up this episode of Fantasy Foresight, the podcast. Don't forget, you can find us at fantasyforesight.com.
And you can use the links at the bottom of the page to find us on social media. Follow us on Twitter at ForesightBen, at ForesightJ, and at Total Foresight. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
You already found this podcast, but you can find it on Google Play and iTunes, and you can find our app in the App Store.
All right, that does it for us. We'll see everybody next time. Thanks a lot, and have a great night.